Hey guys, Ann Stuckey here from Refined Life Coaching. Welcome, welcome. Um, I am here today to talk about having hard conversations because it's one thing that lots of people avoid, and most of the people in my industry have to have hard conversations, whether it's at home, at work, with their family, with their neighbor, with whoever. We really do need to have hard conversations, and we're not really excited about it. So we certainly don't study hard conversations, and we don't want to like dive in and immerse ourselves in preparation for a hard conversation. We kind of stew about it for a while and talk about it and talk about it and talk about it, maybe with so and so and so and so and so and so, and then we're just kind of crabby about it. So today I want to talk about hard conversations because I think it is so needed. It's super important, especially in creative entrepreneur industry or the entrepreneur industry, when we need to be really clear about boundaries. So that's what we're talking about today. All right, let's get started. So what I really want for you guys every time I'm on here is kind of to help you guys figure out how to hack situations. Like, what is something that we can do to really move through this without too much pain, something that's kind of easy. So usually I'll make a tool, or I will create a step-by-step, or I'll create some sort of thought process for you guys to walk through so that it feels better when you're trying to, figure whatever it is out. I guess a good example is today's little freebie is called Step-by-Step Conversation Prep. And so this is based off of a lot of my work with people who need to have hard conversations. Like, how do you get ready to have one that's really efficient and effective? So, okay. So I'm kind of, I always have my notes here, so I want to make sure I get all my stuff. Today, I want you guys to have an opportunity to make hard conversations easy. And there's a couple ways you can do that. And there's actually webinars about this. There's books about this. I mean, this is kind of in the area of communication. What I bring to you today is just really live, hands-on, what I used to do when I was preparing for a hard conversation. So some people know I used to have a flower shop. I had it for 16 years. And during that time, I employed probably around 200 people, not at the same time, but it was a place where we had to have hard conversations. And the person who was usually having them was me, because I was the boss and the owner and the person who needed to come and do the hard stuff. So if you are an entrepreneur or a business owner, or anybody can really benefit from what we're talking about today, the goal is to start thinking differently about hard conversations. The new thought, instead of they're so awful, it's going to be awful, somebody's going to hate me at the end of this, is, hey, my life could really be better once this conversation is done, once this information is kind of imparted, once there's a discussion around topic A, B, or C, whatever the topic is. And instead of thinking this is going to be the worst thing ever, I'd love for you guys to think of it as an opportunity to really, create a win-win. I'm going to tell you a story now. So one of my old employees at the flower shop, who I think is lovely, oh, she is so lovely. I still think she's lovely. She came and worked and had so many great skills that worked really well for the position we were trying to fill. But there were a couple things that just weren't like a natural flow, just not a natural fit. And as an owner, you can usually see that after, like maybe 3 months or 6 months or something like that. It's just, gosh, you know what? It's just not quite working like we want it to. And this person's lovely, and everyone thinks they're lovely. So the hard part is, do we let this person go, even though they're so lovely? They have so many great qualities. It's just that they're really not able to fit into this kind of circular space we need them to fit into. They're more of a triangle. And God bless the triangles. Triangles, there's a spot for the triangles for sure. But boy, we really needed a circle. So I chatted with her. I said, before I had the conversation with her, I needed to decide, was it important enough to let this person go? Because you have to make that decision first. And I had actually decided, yes, it is We really, really got to have a circle, cannot have a triangle there. Just triangle not working. Too many things are getting missed. So I thought, I like this girl so much and I want her to succeed and I want her to feel good. And this has been an opportunity for her to learn more about herself. So I said to her, hey, I want to talk to you. I feel like we hired you for the circular position. Indeed, you are a triangle. I've watched you and you're a beautiful triangle. You're one of the most colorful triangles I've seen. And what I'd love to do is tell you what's really working here and then kind of just let you know, like you probably already know these things aren't really a great match. But I have some thoughts about what would be awesome for you, like what positions there are in town or even in another town that would work really well for you, that are kind of meant for triangles, for your skill set, and I think you'd be magical there. And so our conversation was awesome. And that person I'm still in contact with now, many, many, many years after I originally had hired her and employed her and worked with her. And so when I approach the conversation, I'm like, I got to figure out how to get a win-win out of this, because what I want, the result I want, is I want this girl to go and be excited about her next step. And I want me and the flower shop to figure out how we can get a circle, because we got a triangle, we need a circle. And I want everyone to feel happy and joyful about it. I want the employees to feel good about it. I want the employee who's leaving to feel good about it. And boy, it's one of my favorite times of growth at the flower shop, because really we did create such a win-win, and I still hold this person kind of, deeply in my heart. So just something to think about when you are having hard conversations. If you employ people, whether it's at your home or in your business, have an opportunity to think differently about it and create a win-win. Okay. So right now I want you guys to think, do I have any hard conversations in the hopper that I have been avoiding? Because usually it's kind of like a topic or subject you've been avoiding. I mean, everybody knows, everybody usually has one or two that are kind of, sometimes there's that family stuff that happens too. Sometimes it's with neighbors, sometimes friends, sometimes good close friends that you've been friends with forever. And the first thing we do is we kind of avoid it, thinking, oh, it's just not that important. It's not that big of a deal. So kind of really softly avoiding it. It's just not that big, kind of minimizing, oh, not that big a deal. It's not going to be that big of a deal. It's not going to affect me that much. And then time goes by and you haven't done anything. And then you see, oh, actually this problem's not going to go away. So it becomes a little bit more uncomfortable. And it's probably, you might be pushing up against the guardrails a little bit. I usually call life kind of like a little road, and the guardrails keep us on track. So you might be pushing up against the guardrails. It's getting a little uncomfortable with whatever the situation is. And then it gets more and more uncomfortable. And then you realize, oh, I wish this would go away. I just kind of wish it would go away. And pretty soon it's kind of like, well, it's their fault. They are making me feel terrible. They are putting me in this awful position. And there's a lot of reasons why we don't jump into the conversation. There's a lot of reasons why we don't move forward and just dive in and say, oh my gosh, let's have this conversation. It for sure could be a win-win. We don't really think about it that way. Here are some of the things that keep us from having like a really hard conversation. So we're always, often, I have seen people are worried about likability, about being liked. And perhaps after this conversation, we won't be liked. So you have a fear of being liked. That's fear number one, a fear of not being liked. And then we haven't really determined what we actually want to happen. We haven't even really thought about, like, what do we really want here? So we spend so much time thinking about what we don't want. We don't even know what kind of a result we'd want from this conversation. So there's a little bit of fear around not knowing what we want. And then we're unsure of the reaction that the person will have. Everybody receives information differently. My 3 kids, if you give Henrik information and you give Colin information, and it's the same piece of information and you're hoping for the same result, they're going to receive it differently. Henrik, my dear, sweet, ever-loving, he is going to be pretty sensitive about it. He receives it that way. And Colin's just going to say, okay, what do I need to do? So everybody's just different. Your kids are different. People at work are different. People in your neighborhood are different, and we don't always know how they're going to receive it. So there's definitely a fear of how are they going to receive the information. And then sometimes we just don't know the words. Like, we don't even know what we would say if we were in the proper space to have this conversation. Like, how would we start it out? What's the verbiage here? So again, we're kind of afraid we're not going to do it right. It's not going to be perfect. This is not going to be a perfect conversation, so I don't even want to have it. And then we're afraid we might hurt someone's feelings. I mean, that's almost always, like, somebody might feel bad about themselves because of something that we've pointed out or tried to correct or asked. So that's us being afraid of what we think may or may not happen with that person's feelings. And then again, we're not sure the outcome. That's kind of my number 6. We're just not sure the outcome. So we're afraid of the future. So really, all of this is, if you can kind of catch my drift after I listed all 6, it's all about fear. Like, we are afraid of what may or may not happen in the future. And so most of us just wait, we hang out, and it kind of bothers us, and we're kind of sick about it until you let it go long enough and long enough and long enough. And then you're up in the middle of the night like, oh my gosh, this is just, I have to do something. I just have to do something. And I'm sort of terrorized by it. What am I going to do? So what I want you guys to do, and now let's go back to the beginning of the conversation. I want you to think, I am going to create a win-win. This conversation, I'm going to figure out how to create a win-win. And for those of you just joining, I have this little prep form. It's called Step-by-Step Conversation Prep, made by yours truly. One of my first coaching conversations was about a person who needed to have a hard conversation with their boss. And that was years and years and years ago. And ever since then, it has always been a topic that's come up in coaching. People have to have hard conversations. So that conversation prep, you can download it. It's at angestocky.com/conversation prep. angestocky.com/conversation prep. And that's listed in all the show notes. Okay, so before we go on to that, I kind of want you to think about a conversation that you're holding on to, and I want to know how you feel about it. I would like it if you could check in viscerally, like check in with your body right now and ask your body, hey, how's that feeling? How's that going? How has it felt to hold on to that conversation for this long, to avoid it and to wait? And I want you to think, what has it done to me? Has it taken time away from me being with my family? Has it made it so that I'm not present at A, B, or C, whatever you like to do? Has it affected my relationship with that person? Have I been avoiding that person or that situation long enough that they might think it's awkward, so now it is awkward? And has it affected my health? Has it affected my sleep? Usually these things go on, and pretty soon we can't even remember why we're not sleeping at night. It's because we have to have some hard conversations. Okay. And still you feel sick and you've taken time away from your family and you've done all these things and still you haven't had the conversation. So again, let's prepare for some really good win-win conversations. I want you to turn it on its head. And I want you to dive into the conversation. Oh, and you're saying, no, I'm not ready for that. I am not ready for that, lady. You better tell me some more stuff. Okay, I am going to tell you some more stuff. I want you to think about it as an opportunity to get really good at communication. And once you do this once, it'll start to get a little bit more fun. Just a tiny bit fun. Maybe not a ton of fun, but a tiny bit fun. And I want you to think, I can actually create a great outcome here. I want to have a laser beam focus about what a really good outcome would be from this conversation. And that helps your brain get working on some amazing superstar possibilities for goodness of the conversation. But if you're in the other camp and you're saying, oh no, this is going to be the worst, it's going to be awful, there's nothing good that could come from this conversation, I can't believe I'm going to have it. I mean, that really just spirals you down into a negative space where your brain's just like, yeah, it's going to be really bad. You better do everything you can to avoid that thing. Instead, tell your brain, oh, brain, we can create a win-win here. Help me figure it out. Help me figure it out. So I'm kind of looking at my notes here. I want to make sure I get everything. Yeah, it's the being liked part. I want you to think one more thing. This is another mindset to have around these conversations. Having challenging conversations helps my family, my relationships, and my business move to the next level. When you start getting good at hard conversations, that's when we start moving to the next level in relationships, in business, at home, in communication, with our neighbors, with our family, okay? And, oops, oh boy, sorry guys. The other issue is people are afraid of being not liked anymore. A coaching question that most coaches would ask is, how would it feel if you weren't afraid of not being liked? How would it feel, I'm going to say it again, how would it feel if you weren't afraid of not being liked? Like, what would that feel like for you? Most people say, freeing. That's kind of a popular one. And what if you believe that having your hard conversation, what if you believe that having your hard conversation actually got both you and the other person in the relationship to a better place? What if there was a possibility for that at least? So what I really want you guys to do, I really do want you to download this little thing. I'm going to read all these preps to you right now just so you can kind of get an idea like what this feels like and what it looks like, because it really is a good one and I've worked on it for kind of a long time. Again, this is one way that you guys can get better at your conversations. So let's just say maybe you don't have a space where you can download this and you want to take notes, you sure can. But what if you're like, oh, I need to have a conversation like in the next 20 minutes, and I want to get prepped for it. Here are the questions that I would go through to get really good at it and get my mind around it. Okay, ready? So the first one is, hey, Jay. Hi, Jay. Hi, Bree. Hi, Patty and Lisa and Susan. Hey, guys. At the end of the conversation with so-and-so, what information does he or she need to have that they don't have now? That's like your first prep question. Okay, what information do they need to have that they don't have now? You can jot it down on your piece of paper. The next one is, what do they already know about this topic? And then what's brand new information? If you're bringing brand new information to a conversation that they've never heard before, give them a minute or two to just kind of absorb it, or know that they might be like, oh, they might be surprised by it. Next is, how at the end of the conversation will you know the conversation was successful? Will you feel a certain way? Will something be written? Will something be said? How will you know the conversation was successful? So if the conversation goes really well, how will you know? What would be the best result of the conversation? What's the best possible result of this conversation? What could be like, woo woo, that was great. That was so good. It felt great. Everyone's happy. There's joy on that side and there's joy on this side. What's the best possible result? But then also figure out, just walk through, what's the worst possible result? What is the worst thing that could happen? And prepare for that. Because once you're ready for that, oh, it's so much easier to walk towards this conversation. And then one question is, how do you want to show up for the conversation? Do you want to be soft and gentle? Do you want to be really inquisitive? Do you want to be really motherly? Do you want to be very CEO-ish? Would you like to be stern? Like, what kind of space do you want to, or what kind of attitude or energy do you want to really bring to the conversation? That's kind of important to figure out. The other questions are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 8 more questions for prep, okay? How is that different than when you've shown up for past conversations? So this question kind of helps you coach yourself through the conversation. And the next one is, what do you need to do to show up as number 5? Like, in order to be maternal or in order to be CEO-ish, what do you need to do to prepare to be that way when you enter the conversation? Is it that you need to use certain words? Do you want to wear something that really connects with the person or connects with who you want to be and how you want to show up? Okay, next one is, what, if anything, might derail the conversation? So here you're kind of prepping for, what if this thing just goes down in flames? And if that happens, what do you want to do? If you pre-think it, at least you'll have a little bit of preparation. At least you'll feel like, something could happen here. I could fix this if I needed to. If it went that way, here's what I would do. Just pre-think it. All you could do is pre-think it. And then, is there anything you need to let go of before you have the conversation? Do you need to let go of the thought that you need to be perfect and that the conversation needs to be perfect? Or do you want to let go of the thought that, boy, this person better do what you say or else? Do you need to let go of that? Because this person might not listen. They might not take your correction. They might not receive it the way it's intended. And if that happens, what will you do? And then the next one is, where and when is the best time to have this conversation? And figuring that out is really important. I have lots of kind of private conversations with people regularly, and figuring that out is really important. And then last is, what will your first words be? Once you can figure out what your first words are, it's so much easier to walk towards the conversation. Some of them might be like, hey, Joe, I'd love to have a conversation with you. I kind of want us to talk about blank. Or I'd really like to unpack blank. Like, I'd like to kind of unpack what happened at that last board meeting. Or I'd like to walk through how it felt for you to blank, blank, blank. So there's all different ways that you can really use words to enter into a conversation. In coaching, they teach us to focus on what kind of person we're talking to. So if it's a really kinesthetic person, like a sports person, I might say something like, hey, I want to have a conversation and figure out how we can create a win-win around, what happened with the delivery the other day and the kind of the system. Gosh, I'd really love for us to just hit it out of the park. So I want to hear from you how you think we can do that. So kind of speaking their language is really helpful. Okay, you guys, that's it. This is it, conversation prep. I hope it's helpful. Grab one, and if you have any questions, just give me a call. I'd love to have a conversation about your hard conversation. Okay, enjoy the day, everybody. Bye.